The moment Tessa Kingsley walked into Quantum Holdings headquarters, a towering glass structure in downtown Seattle, her entire career trajectory changed. She'd applied for the event coordinator position to get her foot in the door of the prestigious real estate development firm, never expecting to be called directly into the CEO's office on her first day. But there she stood, clutching her portfolio as Quinn Harrison's executive assistant led her down a hallway lined with scale models of luxury buildings that had transformed the Pacific Northwest skyline. "He's in a good mood today," the assistant whispered, nodding toward the imposing mahogany door. "Just be yourself." Tessa nodded, swallowing hard. At 28, she'd coordinated dozens of high-profile events, but never for a company worth billions. She smoothed her navy pencil skirt, took a deep breath, and walked into Quinn Harrison's office. The man behind the desk wasn't what she expected. Media photos didn't capture the intensity in his steel blue eyes or how his presence seemed to fill the cavernous corner office. At 34, Quinn Harrison had already amassed a fortune that landed him on every most eligible bachelor list in the country. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, his jawline sharp, and when he stood to greet her, Tessa realized he towered over her 5'6" frame. "Miss Kingsley," he said, his voice deep and measured. "Thank you for coming in on such short notice." Tessa extended her hand, hoping he wouldn't notice the slight tremble. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Harrison." His handshake was firm, his hand warm against hers. "Please call me Quinn." The informality surprised her. "Then you must call me Tessa." He gestured toward a chair across from his desk, and Tessa sat down, placing her portfolio on her lap. "Your resume is impressive," Quinn said, leaning back in his chair. 7 years planning events for Seattle's elite. The Nordstrom anniversary gala last year was particularly notable. Tessa smiled, surprised he'd done his homework. "Thank you. It was challenging but rewarding." "Well, I have a challenge for you." Quinn leaned forward, resting his elbows on his desk. "Our annual holiday gala is in 8 weeks. It's our biggest event of the year. Clients, investors, industry partners. Our previous coordinator left unexpectedly, and we need someone who can hit the ground running." "I'm definitely up for the challenge," Tessa said, her confidence growing. "What's your vision for the event?" Something flickered in Quinn's eyes, amusement, perhaps. "That's why I hired you. I want something different this year, something memorable." For the next hour, they discussed the basics: budget, virtually unlimited, venue to be determined, and guest list, over 500 of Seattle's most influential people. Throughout their conversation, Tessa couldn't shake the feeling that Quinn was assessing her beyond her professional capabilities, studying her with an interest that made her cheeks warm. "You start tomorrow," Quinn said finally, standing to signal the end of the meeting. "You'll have a team of 3 assistants and direct access to me for any questions." Tessa stood, gathering her portfolio. "Thank you for this opportunity. I won't disappoint you." Quinn walked her to the door, his hand briefly touching the small of her back. "I'm counting on it, Tessa." The next morning, Tessa arrived early to find her office a spacious room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound already set up with everything she might need. On her desk sat a sleek laptop, company phone, and a handwritten note. "Looking forward to seeing your magic." QH, the personal touch surprised her, and she tucked the note into her planner, unsure why her pulse quickened at the sight of his initials. Her team, Maya, Ethan, and Zoe, arrived shortly after, each bringing expertise in different areas of event planning. They spent the morning reviewing files from previous galas, and Tessa quickly understood why Quinn wanted something different. Year after year, the events had been elegant but predictable standard hotel ballrooms, classical music, typical holiday decor. "He wants memorable," Tessa mused aloud. "Let's give him unforgettable." Over the next few days, Tessa immersed herself in planning. She created vision boards, contacted unusual venues, and researched entertainment options that would surprise even the most jaded guests. Each evening, she sent Quinn a brief update email, never expecting a response given his busy schedule. Yet every morning she arrived to find a reply waiting, sometimes sent at 2 or 3 a.m. His feedback was thoughtful, specific, and occasionally included personal observations that made her wonder if he was as focused on the gala as she was, or if his interest lay elsewhere. 1 week into planning, Quinn's executive assistant appeared at Tessa's door. "Mr. Harrison would like you to join him for lunch to discuss the gala." Tessa glanced at her schedule, filled with vendor meetings. "I have appointments all afternoon. He's aware," the assistant replied with a knowing smile. "He's asked me to reschedule them." An hour later, Tessa found herself in Quinn's private car, a sleek black SUV with tinted windows, headed to a restaurant she'd never heard of. Quinn sat beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something woodsy and expensive. "I hope you don't mind the interruption," he said, his eyes on her rather than the Seattle skyline passing outside. "I wanted your undivided attention." "You're the boss," Tessa replied lightly, though her heart raced at his intensity. "What aspect of the gala did you want to discuss?" "All of it," he said simply. "But first, tell me about Tessa Kingsley." The request caught her off guard. "There's not much to tell." "I disagree." His gaze was unwavering. 7 years building a reputation as Seattle's most innovative event planner, yet you applied for a staff position rather than continuing freelance work. "I'm curious why." Tessa hesitated, unsure how personal to get with her new employer. "Security," she finally said. "Freelancing is exciting but unpredictable. After my father's health scare last year, I realized I wanted something more stable." Quinn nodded, his expression softening. "Family is important to you." "It is. My parents sacrificed a lot for my education." "Dad's heart attack was a wake-up call. I want to be there for them the way they've always been there for me." Something changed in Quinn's demeanor, a slight relaxing of his shoulders. "Admirable. My own parents died when I was in college car accident. It changes your perspective on what matters." The vulnerability in his admission surprised her. "I'm sorry. That must have been incredibly difficult." "It was," he acknowledged. "It's also why I built Quantum the way I did, creating something lasting, something that impacts families positively through the spaces we design." The car stopped outside a nondescript building in Pioneer Square. Inside, they were led through a kitchen to a private dining room where a chef waited to prepare their meal personally. Throughout lunch, their conversation flowed easily between gala plans and personal stories. Quinn spoke about his rise in real estate, starting with small property flips after college and gradually building an empire. Tessa shared her journey from hospitality management student to event planner, including the disaster of her first solo gala where the power went out mid-speech. "How did you handle it?" Quinn asked, genuinely interested. Tessa laughed. "I had the speaker continue by candlelight while I convinced a local a cappella group who happened to be dining there to provide background music. It ended up being more memorable than the original plan." "That's exactly why I hired you," Quinn said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "You see opportunities where others see problems." By the time they returned to the office, Tessa felt a shift in their dynamic, less employer-employee, more collaborative partners. And if she occasionally caught Quinn watching her with an expression that had nothing to do with professional admiration, she told herself it was her imagination. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of planning. Tessa secured the Seattle Aquarium as their venue, an unexpected choice that would allow guests to mingle among exotic marine displays. She arranged for renowned local chefs to create food stations inspired by Quinn's global developments, hired aerialists to perform above the main tank, and designed lighting that would transform the space into an underwater wonderland. Each decision required Quinn's approval, which meant frequent meetings in his office or calls that often extended into the evening. During one late-night planning session, they found themselves alone in the company kitchen, both reaching for coffee. "You should go home, Tessa," Quinn said, noticing the fatigue in her eyes. "The gala will be perfect because you're planning it. One night won't make a difference." The compliment warmed her. I could say the same to you. CEOs don't typically stay until midnight discussing centerpieces. Quinn smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his usually serious face. Maybe I enjoy the company. The comment hung between them, loaded with possibility. Tessa busied herself with her coffee, unsure how to respond. Well, the centerpieces appreciate your dedication. Quinn laughed, the sound echoing in the empty kitchen. Would you like a ride home? My driver is waiting. I couldn't impose, Tessa said quickly. It's not an imposition. It's nearly midnight and I'd feel better knowing you got home safely. Something in his tone protective, gentle made refusal impossible. 20 minutes later, Quinn's car pulled up outside her modest apartment building in Queen Anne. To her surprise, he stepped out with her. I'll walk you to your door, he said when she raised an eyebrow. This is Seattle, not Gotham City, she teased, but allowed him to accompany her to the building entrance. Under the soft glow of the porch light, Quinn seemed different, less the billionaire CEO, more the man. Thank you for tonight, he said quietly. For all the nights you've stayed late working on this project. Just doing my job, Tessa replied, though they both knew she'd gone far beyond her job description. Quinn stepped closer, his hand lightly touching her elbow. For a moment, Tessa thought he might kiss her and, more surprisingly, realized she wanted him to. Instead, he squeezed her arm gently and stepped back. Good night, Tessa. Good night, Quinn. She watched his car drive away, confusion and something dangerously close to disappointment swirling inside her. This attraction was unprofessional, impractical, and entirely inconvenient. Yet as she fell asleep that night, it was Quinn's smile, not centerpieces, that filled her dreams. 3 weeks before the gala, disaster struck. The Seattle Aquarium called to inform Tessa that a pipe had burst, causing significant water damage. They would be closed for repairs through the holiday season. I've ruined everything, Tessa said, pacing Quinn's office after breaking the news. We have 3 weeks to find a new venue for 500 people during the busiest season of the year. It's impossible. Quinn watched her calmly from behind his desk. If anyone can make the impossible happen, it's you. His confidence steadied her. I need to make some calls. Actually, Quinn said, standing, I have an idea. Come with me. An hour later, they stood in an empty warehouse on the waterfront, one of Quantum's recent acquisitions. The space was massive, industrial, and completely raw. This is scheduled for renovation in January, Quinn explained. But it's structurally sound and has all the necessary permits for occupancy. Tessa walked the perimeter, her mind racing with possibilities. The soaring ceilings, the wall of windows overlooking Elliott Bay, the original brick walls, it was a blank canvas with character. We could bring in custom lighting, temporary flooring, create distinct zones for different experiences, she thought aloud. It's not conventional, but it could be extraordinary, Quinn finished for her. Just like your vision for this gala. Tessa turned to find him watching her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. You're serious. We can use this space. Consider it yours until New Year's. Impulsively, Tessa threw her arms around him. Thank you, you just saved the gala. Quinn's arms encircled her waist, holding her against him longer than was strictly professional. When they separated, his expression had changed, warmer, more open. I should get back to the office, Tessa said, suddenly aware of their proximity. We have a new venue to plan for. Of course, Quinn replied, but as they walked to his car, his hand found the small of her back again, lingering there in a gesture that felt increasingly familiar. The next 2 weeks were a frenzy of reworking plans for the new venue. Tessa practically lived at the warehouse, overseeing the transformation from empty industrial space to magical winter wonderland. Quinn visited daily, ostensibly to check progress, but inevitably finding reasons to work alongside Tessa, helping hang lights, reviewing seating arrangements, tasting menu options from competing caterers. During one such visit, 5 days before the gala, Quinn arrived with dinner for the entire team. Everyone take a break, he announced, setting down bags from one of Seattle's best restaurants. Especially you, he added quietly to Tessa. They ate family style at a makeshift table in what would soon be the dining area, the team sharing stories and laughing as stress momentarily lifted. Afterward, the assistants returned to work, but Quinn pulled Tessa aside. "Walk with me." Outside, the December air was crisp but not unbearably cold. They strolled along the waterfront, the city lights reflecting on the dark water of Puget Sound. "The space looks incredible," Quinn said. "Better than I imagined." "Thank you," Tessa replied, pride evident in her voice. "Though I couldn't have done it without your team. You're being modest. This is your vision coming to life." They stopped at a viewpoint, watching a ferry glide across the water toward Bainbridge Island. "Can I ask you something?" Quinn said after a comfortable silence. "Of course." "Why events? Of all the careers you could have chosen, why this one?" Tessa considered the question. "I love creating moments that people remember. Life moves so quickly we rarely pause to truly celebrate. But at a well-designed event, time slows down, people connect. They experience joy or wonder or gratitude. I get to orchestrate those moments." Quinn studied her face in the glow of the street lamps. "That's beautiful. What about you? Why real estate?" "I told you about losing my parents," Quinn said, his voice softening. "After that, the concept of home became incredibly important to me. Not just physical structures, but spaces where people feel secure, where they build lives and memories. Every development we create, from luxury condos to affordable housing, is designed with that philosophy in mind." Tessa felt a new understanding of the man beside her forming. Not just the successful CEO, but someone shaped by loss, driven by values deeper than profit margins. "The Gala," Quinn continued, "is more than a holiday party. It's a chance to remind our partners and clients why we do what we do, why it matters." "No pressure," Tessa said with a smile. Quinn laughed, then grew serious again. "You've exceeded every expectation, Tessa. I want you to know that." The sincerity in his voice touched her deeply. "Thank you for trusting me with something so important to you." Their eyes met, and this time the air between them seemed charged with unspoken possibility. Quinn stepped closer, and Tessa's heart raced. But before either could act on the moment, Quinn's phone rang an emergency with an overseas project that required his immediate attention. "I need to take this," he said apologetically. "But Tessa, we'll continue this conversation." The promise in his words stayed with her long after he'd escorted her back to the warehouse and departed in his waiting car. The night of the gala arrived with typical Seattle winter weather, steady rain that turned the city lights into blurry watercolors. Tessa had been at the venue since dawn, overseeing final preparations, and now stood in a small back office that had become her command center, finally changing into her evening attire. She'd splurged on a forest green gown that complemented her auburn hair and brought out the gold flecks in her hazel eyes. As she applied a final touch of lipstick, her assistant Meyer appeared in the doorway. "You look stunning," Maya said with a grin, "and everything is perfect out there." "You've pulled off a miracle." Tessa took a deep breath. "Let's hope Quinn thinks so." Maya's eyebrow arched knowingly. "I'm sure he will. He's been asking for you, by the way, just arrived." Tessa's stomach fluttered at the news. She hadn't seen Quinn since their waterfront walk 3 days ago, though they'd texted frequently about last-minute details. "Tell him I'll find him shortly," Tessa replied, trying to sound professionally detached. The transformation of the warehouse exceeded even Tessa's vision. The industrial space now glowed with thousands of twinkling lights suspended from the ceiling like stars. A massive Christmas tree, decorated in silver and blue to match Quantum's corporate colors, dominated one corner. The wall of windows had been enhanced with frosted film in intricate patterns, creating the illusion of looking through ice crystals to the bay beyond. Instead of traditional round tables, Tessa had designed a variety of seating areas: intimate lounges, communal dining sections, and standing cocktail spaces, encouraging guests to mingle throughout the evening. 5 gourmet food stations represented regions where Quantum had major developments, while 3 bars served signature cocktails named after the company's most successful projects. As guests began arriving, Tessa watched from a discreet corner, noting with satisfaction the expressions of wonder as they entered. Everything was running smoothly. The string quartet played, servers circulated with champagne, and the custom lighting shifted subtly every 20 minutes to create evolving ambience. "You've outdone yourself." The voice behind her sent a shiver down her spine. Tessa turned to find Quinn standing there, devastatingly handsome in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo. "I hope you're pleased," she said, suddenly breathless. Quinn's eyes traveled slowly from her face to her gown and back again. "More than pleased with everything." The emphasis on the last word made her cheeks warm. "You should greet your guests. I believe the mayor just arrived with his wife." "I will," Quinn said, not moving, "but first I have something for you." From his pocket, he produced a small blue box. "Quinn, you didn't need to open it," he said softly. Inside lay a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny star. "It reminded me of what you said about creating memorable moments," Quinn explained. "You're a star maker, Tessa." The thoughtfulness of the gift moved her deeply. "It's beautiful, thank you." Quinn took the bracelet from the box and fastened it around her wrist, his fingers lingering against her pulse point. "Perfect," he murmured, and Tessa wasn't sure if he meant the bracelet or something more. The moment was interrupted by Quinn's COO approaching with important investors. With a regretful smile, Quinn squeezed her hand and went to fulfill his host duties. Throughout the evening, Tessa remained in constant motion, checking on food service, cueing the entertainment changes, ensuring every detail was flawless. Yet somehow, she was always aware of Quinn's location in the room, as if an invisible thread connected them. Occasionally, their eyes would meet across the crowd, and the look he gave her made it difficult to focus on her tasks. At 11 o'clock, as planned, the lights dimmed and the aerialists began their performance above the main floor. Guests gasped and applauded as the performers created breathtaking formations in the air, their costumes sparkling in the spotlight. Tessa felt a presence beside her and knew without looking that Quinn had found her again. "May I have this dance?" he asked as the aerialists finished and soft music began. "I should check on the dessert service," she protested weakly. "Your team has it covered," Quinn said, taking her hand. "One dance, Tessa." He led her to the center of the floor where other couples were already swaying to the music. His arm slipped around her waist, drawing her closer than was strictly necessary. Tessa's hand rested on his shoulder, acutely aware of his strength beneath the fine fabric of his tuxedo. "Everyone's talking about how extraordinary this event is," Quinn said, his voice low near her ear. "You've transformed my company's reputation in a single evening." "I had an amazing canvas to work with," Tessa replied. "This space has so much potential." "I wasn't talking about the warehouse." Tessa looked up, meeting his intense gaze. "Quinn, I have a confession," he interrupted, guiding her in a slow turn. "When I hired you, I'd already attended 3 events you'd planned. I knew exactly how talented you were." Confusion flickered across her face. "You specifically sought me out. Why?" "The first event of yours I attended was the Children's Hospital benefit last spring. You were everywhere that night solving problems, creating magic, making everyone feel special. But what struck me most was watching you with the children who came to thank the donors. The genuine joy on your face, the care you took with each of them. I couldn't take my eyes off you." Tessa remembered that night clearly, one of her most rewarding professional experiences, but had no recollection of seeing Quinn there. "I made it a point to attend other events you coordinated," Quinn continued. "Each time, I saw the same qualities: intelligence, creativity, compassion. When our previous coordinator left, I immediately thought of you. So you hired me based on stalking." Tessa teased, trying to process this revelation. Quinn laughed softly. "Professional research. But yes, I specifically wanted you at Quantum. What I didn't anticipate was how quickly you would become essential not just to this event, but to me." The music changed to something slower, more intimate, and Quinn drew her even closer. "These past weeks, working with you, getting to know you. Tessa, I've never met anyone like you," her heart hammered against her ribs. "Quinn, I work for you, this is complicated." "It doesn't have to be," he said, his fingers tracing small circles against her lower back. "The gala is over tomorrow, your contract as event coordinator fulfilled. What happens next is entirely up to us." "What are you suggesting?" Tessa asked, though she already knew the answer in the way he was looking at her. "Have dinner with me tomorrow night, not as my employee, as a woman I'm very interested in knowing better." The directness of his invitation took her breath away. "People will talk." "Let them," Quinn said with conviction. "I've spent years building my company, focusing on success to the exclusion of everything else. Then you walked into my office and suddenly spreadsheets and blueprints weren't the most interesting things in my day." Tessa couldn't help smiling. "That might be the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Say yes, and I promise it won't be the last." Before she could answer, the music ended and Quinn was reluctantly pulled away by his executive team for the evening's final address to the guests. Tessa watched him take the small stage, commanding the room with natural charisma as he thanked everyone for coming and spoke about Quantum's vision for the future. When he finished to enthusiastic applause, Tessa slipped away to check on the departure gifts and ensure the valet service was running smoothly. By the time she returned inside, Quinn was surrounded by well-wishers and clients eager for his attention. The gala concluded at 1 in the morning, right on schedule. As the last guests departed, Tessa's team began the initial cleanup, preparing for the professional crew that would arrive in a few hours. Exhausted but satisfied, Tessa sat on a velvet sofa in a quiet corner, removing her high heels with a sigh of relief. Successful evening. She looked up to find Quinn approaching, his bow tie undone and jacket draped over his arm, looking somehow even more attractive in this slightly disheveled state. "Beyond successful," Tessa confirmed. "The mayor said it was the highlight of the season, and I overheard at least 3 potential investors discussing new projects with your team." Quinn sat beside her, closer than necessary on the spacious sofa. "You never answered my question from earlier." Tessa pretended to consider, though she'd made her decision the moment he asked. "Dinner tomorrow sounds lovely." His smile was immediate and genuine. "I was prepared to be much more persuasive." "I'm still open to persuasion," Tessa said boldly, surprising herself. Quinn's eyes darkened. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers trailing along her jaw. "In that case," he leaned forward slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. Instead, Tessa met him halfway, their lips connecting in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened as weeks of building tension finally found release. Quinn's hand cradled the back of her neck, drawing her closer as Tessa's fingers curled into the fabric of his shirt. When they finally separated, both slightly breathless, Quinn rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since you walked into my office that first day." "That would have been highly inappropriate," Tessa teased, though her racing heart betrayed her affected calm. "Worth the wait," Quinn murmured, brushing his lips against hers once more before reluctantly pulling back. "You should go home and rest. I'll have my driver take you." "What about you?" "I'll stay to help your team finish up." Tessa raised an eyebrow. "The CEO of Quantum Holdings doing cleanup duty?" Quinn shrugged, a boyish gesture that made him appear younger. "I'm invested in the success of this event." "And in the event planner?" Tessa asked, emboldened by his admission. Quinn took her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. "Especially in the event planner." 6 months later, Tessa stood on the balcony of Quinn's penthouse overlooking Elliott Bay, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Strong arms encircled her waist from behind, and she leaned back against Quinn's solid chest. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I was just thinking about how different my life is now compared to a year ago," Tessa replied honestly. "I never expected applying for that job would change everything." Quinn turned her in his arms to face him. Best hire I ever made. Their relationship had progressed quickly but naturally after the gala. Dinner the next night led to more dinners, weekend trips to Quinn's cabin in the Cascades, and eventually, Tessa spending more nights at his place than her own. 3 months in, she'd officially moved into his penthouse, and her event planning business, which Quinn had encouraged her to restart independently, was thriving with his connections and support. "I have something for you," Quinn said, reaching into his pocket. "An early anniversary gift." "Our anniversary isn't for 2 more weeks," Tessa reminded him, though curiosity shone in her eyes. "I couldn't wait." He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a key card and a business card for Quantum Holdings with her name on it, but instead of event coordinator, her title read Director of Charitable Initiatives. "What is this?" Tessa asked, confused. "You mentioned wanting to do more events with purpose like the Children's Hospital benefit that first made me notice you," Quinn explained. "I've created a new division within Quantum focused on philanthropic work, community spaces, affordable housing, support for local organizations. It needs a director who understands how to bring people together for causes that matter." Tessa stared at the card, speechless. "You'd have complete creative control, your own budget, your own team," Quinn continued. "And you'd report directly to the board, not to me, to avoid any conflict of interest." "Quinn, I don't know what to say. This is incredible." He took both her hands in his. "There's more. The key card is for the warehouse, the one where we held the gala. I've purchased it permanently, and it's being renovated as we speak to become an event space for community use. It's called Kingsley Hall." Tears welled in Tessa's eyes. "You named it after me," it seemed fitting, "the place where everything changed for us." Before Tessa could respond, Quinn dropped to one knee, still holding her hands. "But there's one more thing I'm hoping you'll agree to." From his pocket, he produced a small velvet box, this one much different from the one that had held her bracelet. Inside nestled an exquisite emerald-cut diamond ring. "Tessa Kingsley," Quinn said, his voice thick with emotion. "Planning that holiday gala with you showed me everything I'd been missing in my life: joy, partnership, purpose beyond work. I knew by the night of the event that I was falling in love with you. Now, 6 months later, I'm certain I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Tears spilled freely down Tessa's cheeks as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered, then more firmly, "Yes." Quinn slid the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into a kiss that promised a lifetime of shared dreams. Later that evening, as they celebrated with champagne on the balcony, Tessa rested her head on Quinn's shoulder. "You know, when I applied for that job, I was just looking for stability." Quinn kissed the top of her head. "And I was just looking for an event planner. Seems like we both got more than we bargained for," Tessa said, admiring how her ring caught the last rays of sunset. "Sometimes the best plans are the ones we never see coming," Quinn replied, drawing her close as night fell over the city where their story began.